The General Tools Award is the highest honor that the SIA can bestow. The award recognizes individuals who have given sustained, distinguished service to the cause of industrial archaeology. The General Tools Award was established in 1992 through the generosity of Gerald Weinstein, Chairman Emeritus of the Board of General Tools and Instruments of New York City, and the Abraham and Lillian Rosenberg Foundation. The Rosenbergs founded General Hardware, the predecessor to General Tools. The award consists of an engraved sculpture, the famed plumb bob, and a cash prize. As well, we read a citation at this annual business meeting and publish it in our newsletter, and provide an opportunity for the recipient to make a few remarks to us following the presentation. The recipient of the award is determined by the members of the General Tools Award Committee, appointed by the President of the SIA, and we each serve 3-year overlapping terms. The 2020 committee consists of myself as chairman, Fred Quevic, who will serve as chairman in 2021, and David Simmons. Criteria for selection are as follows. 1, the recipient must have given noteworthy, beyond the call of duty service over an extended period to the cause of industrial archaeology. 2, the type of service for which the recipient is recognized is unspecified, but must be for other than academic publication. 3, it is desirable but not required that the recipient be or previously have been a member of the SIA. And 4, the award may be made only to living individuals. This year's recipient has made exceptional contributions to IA, specifically within his home state, where he has been a leader since the early 1980s. He is being recognized for his efforts documenting and preserving resources at nationally significant mining heritage sites, and his many spectacular efforts at promoting his state's varied industrial heritage through tours, conferences, workshops, surveys, research, and publications, not to mention being a founder and longtime president of his state's local SIA chapter, as well as a co-leader of 3 highly memorable SIA fall tours. The 2020 General Tools Award recipient is Brian Shovers, co-founder of the Coqueletco, Montana chapter of the SIA and chapter president and editor of its newsletter since the early 1990s. Throughout that time, he has worked tirelessly to organize chapter events and raise Montanans' awareness of their state's industrial and engineering heritage, especially through organizing the Made in Montana field trips each year in conjunction with the Montana State History Conference, held in October in Helena every other year and held in another Montana city in alternating years. The Made in Montana tours serve as the chapter's fall tours, and he also organizes a chapter tour each spring, often at a more out-of-the-way area in the state. A native of Wisconsin, Brian lived in Missoula in the 1970s and then moved to Butte in the early 1980s to work at the National Center for Appropriate Technology as a writer and editor. He immediately joined the Butte Historical Society and, together with Fred Quevic, helped to organize a conference funded by the Montana Committee for the Humanities called Butte, the Urban Frontier. The weekend conference in September 1982 brought to Butte about 20 speakers who were researching various facets of Butte's history, including its industrial history of mining. In the mid-1980s, Brian helped several of the conference presenters develop written versions of their presentations to launch the Butte Historical Society's semi-annual journal, The Speculator, the Journal of Butte and Southwest Montana History, which he edited. The Speculator is the name of one of the mines where, in 1917, 165 miners were killed in what is still the worst hard rock mining disaster in U.S. history. One issue of The Speculator was a theme issue on Butte's industrial history. Brian's first SIA activity was the fall of 1983, when he and Fred crashed the fall tour in Colorado. They were both living in Butte at the time, so they drove together through Yellowstone Park to Colorado and then showed up at the conference hotel without registering for the event. The tour organizers explained that Brian and Fred should have paid to register to help cover the cost of the tour, to allow for the liability insurance to kick in, et cetera. But since the two rubes from Montana had driven all that way, the organizers let them tag along. Brian must have been impressed with the Colorado tour because he was one of the main organizers of the SIA's fall tour in Butte 6 years later. As far as we know, he did not let any non-paying individuals participate in that event. Brian also worked for the Butte Historical Society during the summer of 1984 on a field team surveying and evaluating buildings and structures in the Butte National Historic Landmark District. The Butte NHL was declared a landmark in the early 1960s before passage of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966, and therefore before standards were developed for documenting these kinds of historic districts. As a consequence, Butte's buildings and structures lacked the documentation that would be important for owners of income-producing structures to take advantage of tax credits, or that could guide homeowners in appreciating the importance of their contributing structures. The team documented more than 1,000 buildings and structures, and during the project, Brian headed the effort to document Butte's historic mine yards. Butte has 13 extant steel head frames with their ancillary buildings, which had never been documented or evaluated. In the late 1980s, armed with a BA in history from San Francisco State University and an MA in history from Montana State University in Bozeman, Brian took a job as historian with the cultural resources management firm GSM Services in Butte. And in about 1985, he joined forces with Fred, Mark Feige, and Dale Martin, who all worked with another CRM firm in Butte, Renewable Technologies, Inc., to launch the SIA's Clopetco chapter. They held an organizing meeting in Anaconda in conjunction with tours of the AFFCO foundry, formerly the foundry department of the Anaconda Copper Mining Company. They also visited the railroad shops complex of the Raris Railway, formerly the Butte, Anaconda, and Pacific Railway, and other sites in the community. With Quevic and Martin, Brian organized the SIA's 1989 fall tour of Butte and Anaconda. He was the person responsible for arranging the performance of a comedic songwriter, Greg Keeler, who performed at the banquet, and it was a large hit with the people who attended. In 1991, Brian left Butte to earn a master's degree in library science with a focus on archival management at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. After completing that degree, he worked in Philadelphia for 2 years at the Urban Archives Temple University, which is itself an important repository of regional industrial history. Upon his return to Montana, he took a job as reference librarian at the Montana Historical Society. And over the years, he ascended in the MHS organization, working in both the archives and the library until he became library manager in 2006. Brian retired from the Historical Society in 2015. Throughout that time, he worked tirelessly to advance the field of industrial archaeology in Montana. His knowledge of the state's industrial history helped researchers, whether academics or local history buffs, to access materials that furthered their research interest. Writing to the General Tools Committee in support of Brian's nomination, Kirby Lambert, the current Outreach and Interpretation Program Manager at the Historical Society, stated that Brian, quote, played a critical role in serving as an important resource for researchers seeking information about Montana's industrial past. This is especially true for the areas of copper mining in Butte and Western Montana's timber industry. His knowledge of and enthusiasm for these subjects, including the physical remains of these industries, has had a tremendous impact on the study of these topics statewide, unquote. Brian is also an excellent networker, helping to connect folks with others with shared interests in Montana's industrial history. In addition to organizing chapter tours, including the Made in Montana tours linked to the Montana History Conference, he worked with the Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology to reprint the guidebook for the SIA's 1989 fall tour. Titled Butte and Anaconda Revisited, an overview of early day mining and smelting in Montana, it is still in print and available from the Bureau for $10, reference publication number SP99. In 2004, he and Quevic organized the SIA Fall Tour of Northeastern Montana, and in 2015, they organized the SIA Fall Tour of Great Falls. In other service to the Society, Brian guest edited the Montana theme issue of IA, the journal, our journal, volume 37, numbers 1 and 2, 2011, and he contributed an article on the Butte Waterworks. In 2011, 13, and 15, Brian helped the Montana Historical Society to sponsor and organize summer landmarks workshops in Butte, funded by the NEH. Each of those summers featured 2 week-long workshops for teachers from around the U.S. who sought an on-the-ground experience of a national landmark that they could then take home to enhance their students' study of U.S. history. The Butte Landmarks workshops were led by scholars studying Butte's history, including its ethnic, labor, industrial, and environmental histories, and the workshops featured numerous tours of sites in Butte and Anaconda, which Brian helped to organize and lead. Throughout the time Brian has been president of the Clopetco chapter, he has also edited its semi-annual newsletter, which features recaps of the chapter tours, research Brian has conducted on sites to be visited during upcoming tours, and short articles he has solicited from other Montanans who are researching sites or industries of particular interest to chapter members. While Brian worked at the Montana Historical Society, and continuing since he is retired, he has recorded numerous oral histories of judges and politicians for the Society's oral history collection. And another theme he has developed in an IA vein has been to record interviews with individuals who have launched microbreweries in various communities of the state. Brian's influence on his state's appreciation for its industrial archaeology cannot be underestimated. Sherry Justo, executive director of the Montana Preservation Alliance, wrote the General Tools Committee that, quote, Brian's fascination with the industrial side of Montana history has never waned, and his dedication to sharing knowledge with many audiences helped to support the preservation and appreciation of Montana's historic built environment, unquote. She noted that his efforts have ensured people can visit sites related to mining and smelting, logging, railroads, agriculture, and a firsthand look behind the scenes of grain elevators, hydropower dams, brickyards, sawmills, and even distilleries, breweries, and wineries. Patty Dean, Chief Operating Officer of the Montana Club, summed up Brian's contributions to Montana IA this way, quote, he possesses an intellectual generosity, an enviable facility to translate difficult processes and scientific theories into language comprehensible to all. Brian's knowledge of Montana's complex industrial archaeology and history is all-encompassing and makes for an especially interesting presentation as he makes connections and explains the relationships among industries that often have been inactive for decades, unquote. Few people have devoted so much time and energy to further the cause of IA in their home stomping grounds over such a long period. Brian is highly deserving of our thanks and this acknowledgement of his sustained, distinguished service to the field with presentation of the 2020 General Tools Award. And Brian, normally at this juncture, we would all give you a standing ovation and welcome you to the podium to make a few remarks. It's virtually, we can't do that this year, but we hope we will see you at a conference sometime in the future and can do a little acknowledgement in person. And excuse my dog. I guess with that, Daniel, maybe I could share the Plumb Bob Award photo. I'll try to do that. So Brian, there is the famous Plumb Bob. Jerry Weinstein is the keeper of the Plumb Bobs, and he'll be getting this engraved with your name and making arrangements to have it shipped to you. It's actually a somewhat delicate award, and he has created special boxes and packing materials for getting it shipped to you. So look forward to hearing from Jerry to make arrangements for getting that to you. And Nancy has as well has forwarded the cash award check. So with that, Brian, I think, or Daniel, I hand over the mic and we'll hear from Brian. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Patrick for all the wonderful things he said about me. And I'd like to thank the SIA for acknowledging my work over the years. And this is a real honor. To begin with, I'd like to talk about how I ended up working in this field. And I have to give credit to an old friend of mine by the name of Steve Loken. He's a contractor in Missoula, but we actually met up in Troy, Montana, a little logging town in northwestern Montana back in 1974. I had moved there from Berkeley, California, and bought some land south of Troy and met Steve. And Steve, both of us ended up, I only lasted a couple of years there after the transition from Berkeley to Troy, Montana, which has like a couple hundred people. It was a little bit difficult. And so I moved down to Missoula, and Loken ended up in Missoula around the same time. And, you know, I had this bachelor's degree in history, but I had never worked in history. I'd worked primarily as a writer and editor. And Loken said that there was a job available at NCAT, the National Center for Appropriate Technology, for a writer and editor. And I had never really heard about them or knew much about what they had done. Mike Mansfield was instrumental in establishing that center in Butte. He had worked as a miner in Butte in his early days before he became a politician. But in any case, it was that I was hired and moved to Butte, and that really launched my career in history. It was, who knows what I would have ended up doing had I not ended up in Butte. And, you know, Steve is the one that, you know, I never would have known about this job anyway. I have to thank him for getting me to end up in Butte, which is a great place for a historian to live and work. And then in addition, you know, Fred Quivik and I met in Butte in the early 1980s. And he, you know, was so knowledgeable about all this stuff. And I, you know, before meeting Fred, I had no idea what even industrial archaeology was. And so we got to know each other and started working to put together the chapter. And as you heard in Patrick's presentation, we were involved in a lot of projects together over the years. And Fred put together my nomination, which I really thank him for. It was really great. And I'm looking forward to continuing to be active in the Society for Industrial Archaeology. Thank you.